Hello everybody, my name is Chloe and today I am here with a brand new vlog. As you guys can tell by the title of this vlog video, we are back into the critical rereading game already. It's happening so soon. We are in the final stretch of rereading the Twilight series with a critical viewpoint. Just this video and one more and we're done. And in today's episode, we are critically rereading Breaking Dawn. I've decided that I'm going to break this down into potentially 3 parts, but honestly we're looking at probably some more. At the very least, we're going to do 3 parts, and we're going to talk about each section of the book because this book is split into 3 pieces, book 1, book 2, and book 3. Book 1 follows Bella, book 2 follows Jacob, and book 3 is back with Bella. So my original reading of this was a mere, how old am I? Probably like 11, not even 11, no, not 11, 12 years ago. Way too young to be reading Twilight, especially this book. I've said it in the previous rereading videos and I'll say it again in this one. I was very young when I read Twilight. I should not have read it at the age that I did, but I did. And I became obsessed as a child. I was a very big Twilight fan for about 2 years, maybe? I don't even know. And I was way too young to understand all of the issues that come with the Twilight Saga and issues that Stephenie Meyer has written into this book. So that is why now I am rereading all of them with a critical viewpoint, and this all sparked from when Midnight Sun was announced and being released. I decided that I was going to critically reread all of the books and then critically read Midnight Sun for the first time. We didn't do just the 4 books. We're doing all 4 books. I did Midnight Sun. I included The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner in my vlog about Eclipse. And then after this one, I'm going to be critically reading Life and Death. Alright, this is going to be a 750-page wild ride, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start off this with all of the trigger warnings that I have found so far in the book as a whole. I have trigger warnings for racism / slang against indigenous cultures, abortion talk, toxic masculinity, casual talk of suicide, and fertility issues. So it took me about a day and a half to get through part 1, which was me starting it in the middle of a workday and finishing it in the middle of the next workday. Not a lot happens in the beginning. It's just a lot of preparation for the wedding, so not a lot of things to actually chat about in there. The beginning leading up to the wedding is a lot of flashbacks and memories of them like telling Charlie and different things like that. So not too much to think about there. But I did notice, and this isn't a bad thing, this is just an observation, a little bit of foreshadowing in one of the memories that my young child brain would not have realized it was foreshadowing because I didn't know what foreshadowing was at the time. I'll put the section up here, but basically it is Edward talking to Bella about how when they told Charlie, Charlie thought she was pregnant, and Edward says that he wishes that Charlie had been right. Or at least that that could have even been a possibility. I just wrote, when on my second day of reading, I said, day 2 of reading, not much to report, vampire sex, and chilling on an island. Okay, so my first big issue that I want to talk about happens while they're on their honeymoon and the cleaning crew comes. And I remember when I originally read this being kind of confused about that section, so I wanted to make sure I had my eyes peeled during this one. And there is a section, and I will put it right here, but the sentence is, Kari's part Takuna Indian is the one sentence I want to focus on. So they are in South America. So I don't know, because I'm not from South America, I don't know what the culture is around there surrounding indigenous people, but you know, from an American's point of view, like from being from North America, we know that the term Indian is not a correct term for Native Americans. It's Native American. I wanted to do some research into what, you know, what the proper term is instead of Takuna Indian. My first thought was, why not you just say Takuna tribe? And that's what I looked up when I was searching them. I found Takuna tribe. And honestly, I think that could have been a very easy thing to say instead of Takuna Indian. Just say Takuna tribe. So what I also did was I texted my friend Kathleen, who is from Brazil, she used to live there, to ask, you know, what is the term that's used there, if it's Indian, or if they're also called Native Americans, because technically it's South America. And what she told me is that they use the term Indio, which essentially means Indian, even though they're not from India. And then even though it is South America, South Americans do not refer to themselves as American or Native American. That's really only a USA thing. Instead, they would call themselves Latin. All that being said, Stephenie Meyer should have just used Takuna tribe instead of Takuna Indian. Now let's talk about the pregnancy, because it's just now starting. And this is the last little part for part 1. And there's trigger warning for abortion in this part. But I understand why Edward is worried that Bella is going to get hurt, because it is a vampire, half vampire child. He's being a little piece of shit, not considering Bella's feelings and all of this, because he's just like, we're going to get that thing out of you. Like, you need to consider her feelings in all of this. So that's all I have for part 1. That was my whole major issue with this. We're going to keep going and see what happens in part 2. And part 2 is Jacob's section, which when I was younger, I remember not really enjoying reading that as much. So we'll see how this one goes. Happy Friday, everybody. Today is my one of my days off this week. I do work tomorrow, but I'm trying to add some life into this vlog other than just my updates. Although I will say, the next time I update on Reading for Breaking Dawn, I do have a lot of stuff to talk about. So I'm also trying to infuse like a day in my life kind of vibe going on with this. So I'm going to take you guys along with me today on my day off. First thing I did this morning was to finish editing tomorrow's video, which is a read with me in real time. I just had to add some sound effects to it, and it is pretty much done. And the next thing I'm going to do, it is 10:45 this in the morning, and I'm actually getting ready to go see my mom. And for full transparency, we are very safe. There are 2 people in her household, and one of them is fully vaccinated. I've had my first vaccine shot, so we are very safe when we do this. That's what I'm about to go do, and I'm taking a blanket with me because it has a rip in it that I need her help fixing. So yeah, that is what is going on, and then we'll see where the day goes. But I'm about to leave the house, so let's go. I am a terrible vlogger, but my mom doesn't like to be on camera, so we kind of just hang out and chill. I did watch the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier with her, as well as the behind the scenes of WandaVision. And then I finally decided on lunch, and I got tropical smoothie, and I already ate the wrap. I got the Cajun shrimp wrap. Fun fact, I used to work at Tropical Smoothie. It was my first job. So now I'm back home, so obviously I'm not doing a very good job of showing you, quote, a day in my life. But let me show you what I'm working on right now. I'm watching Once Upon a Time on my phone, my favorite TV show of all time. And this is my rewatch, season 3. I have my next video that I'm working on up on my laptop for me to start editing. And what I'm going to do is I'm quickly going to write a couple of notes that I had for my reading of Breaking Dawn that I did this morning. And then we're going to go ahead and sit down and chat about part 1 of Breaking Dawn. Let's chat about part 2. So part 2 follows Jacob's perspective, as I said a little bit earlier. And when I was younger, I didn't care to read this perspective. I don't know, probably because I was Team Edward, but now I find that I didn't mind, mostly because he was at the Cullens so much that we really saw both sides. So I actually pulled a lot from part 2. So let's go ahead and start chatting about it. Should I talk about only the negative things, or should I talk about everything? Let me just talk about some like miscellaneous stuff before I get to the ridiculous stuff. I always forget that Jacob has sisters, and apparently Paul imprinted on one of them. So there's that. Totally did not remember that at all. And then I don't understand that parents of werewolves can't be in on the secret. Also, they wouldn't already know. I don't understand that part. There was a little section about that. Hey, this is Chloe from editing, popping on. For some reason, my camera did not, it's like, I guess it didn't record the negative aspects of what I was talking about in part 2. So I'm back really quick to chat about them. And I have to do it quickly because this camera is dying and I have to go to work. So let's go. So the last thing I talked about in that clip was that werewolf parents are not in on the secret, I guess, unless they're part of like the elders. So I don't know what the deal is with that. Next, I want to talk about this little portion right here. And that is Jacob talking to Quill. Quill has imprinted on a 2-year-old and she just turned 3 and they had a birthday party. And toxic masculinity much? Okay, next I want to put up this section. I want you guys to focus on the sentence that I have in little boxes there. And I'm just thinking about how, like, when I read that and I found out that this, like, I had to look, this book is meant for 12-year-olds and older, and I don't think that's okay. Judging by the age that I read it, when I read this book I was 11, which was obviously not good. Like, everybody was reading Twilight, so everybody wanted to, so obviously you want to be part of like the in crowd, but 12-year-olds definitely should not be reading that, because like when I was 11 I had no idea what I was reading. Obviously it is one line in a whole book, but still there's a lot of stuff. Okay, another trigger warning, this one for more abortion discussion. I don't have a screenshot for this, but I'm just a little peeved that like Edward and Carlisle like wanted to essentially knock her out and like take the baby against her will. And I hate it because Carlisle is such a compassionate character that he is like involved in that. It's just, I don't like that at all. So trigger warning now for fertility issues. I'm gonna put a couple different things up here. This first paragraph right here, I want you guys to check out that last sentence, and this is from Jacob's perspective, and it says, the only female werewolf in the history of forever. What was that? Because she wasn't as female as she should be? And, you know, just for my notes, I'm really not sure how to feel about that sentence. Maybe is it because it came from a male perspective? I'm not sure, but we don't really get a lot of information later on about that. And then we have this other section here where they're still talking about Leah. It's Leah and Jacob, and essentially she's saying that she's menopausal at 20 years old, and that's kind of playing off of her being the first female werewolf in history. They don't know if she's always going to be like this, or if it's only going to be while she's continuously changing into a werewolf, or what. Last little bit for this clip, and it's a good thing, and I feel like Edward is really trying to make an effort with Jacob and come to some sort of compromise. Even if Jacob doesn't want to completely meet him halfway, I still think Edward is doing the right thing of trying to get to that point. Alright, that's it for editing, Chloe, and let's get back to the original clips. Hello, and welcome to the last update of Breaking Dawn. I finally finished the book, so now we're going to talk about part 3. Surprisingly, I don't have a lot to discuss in part 3, but there was a lot of stuff I didn't remember happening, and let's chat. So one thing I'd like to point out, and this is probably also due in part to the movie, is that this book feels like there's almost 2 completely separate stories in it. Like, you could split this book down the middle and it's 2 books. And let's face it, that's most likely due to the movie, because it is split into part 1 and part 2, which separate them in my mind. Something I want to know, because we do know that Jacob is, in the previous book, has been in love with Bella, but then he imprinted on Renesmee. So was he only in love with Bella because that was her future child? Like, does that make sense? Let's chat about when the vampires arrive from different countries and cultures. So first there is this quote when the Irish clan arrived, and Siobhan is described as, quote, a woman of immense presence whose huge body was both beautiful and mesmerizing, etc., etc. You know, about that description, I'm really not sure how to feel about the addition of, quote, huge body, unquote. I think there might have been a better way to say that. For some reason, that just doesn't resonate well with me. Even just taking that part off and leaving the immense presence, I think would have been fine. Moving on. So now we're at the part where the Volturi is there, and Caius is very adamant that he wants justice on something to happen today. Marcus is indifferent, which I love about him, and you know, Arrow is very trying to get to the bottom of it, trying to keep Caius calm and not be ridiculous. First, I'd like to put this quote up, and Caius is speaking on the werewolves, or, quote, the children of the moon, and I just love that Edward just goes, Caius, it's the middle of the day. These are not children of the moon, clearly. And that just, the sass was great. And then I'm not going to go too deeply into this section of text that I'm throwing up right now. But I just think it's interesting that I didn't remember this from Breaking Dawn in my original read, and I feel like we're getting more of a depth of the werewolves, so there's like 2 different kinds of wolves now in this world. And then this set of text is again Caius trying to get justice happening, and I just love that he just deadpans, they know our secret, like trying to get something. And then Arrow is just like, they're creatures of the supernatural world. I don't think that matters at this point. And then the last thing I actually have to talk about, again, not an issue, is something that just kind of, I was like, wow. And here's the set of text, and let me direct you down to the bottom. Here's some context, actually. Jacob is about to leave with Renesmee, and Edward has just found out, and, you know, he's saying goodbye, and at the bottom it says, Edward leaned his head against the same shoulder where he placed Renesmee. Goodbye, Jacob, my brother, my son. And I was just like, what? Like, holy crap. Like, he's come to a place of acceptance in both having Jacob in his life, having Jacob be imprinted on Renesmee. Like, he has come to a place of acceptance. And I know we're not in Jacob's brain, but I really hope that Jacob has also come to that, to those terms. Like, he's going to be in their lives for the rest of ever. So as we can see, a lot of my issues were mostly in part 1 and part 2. I would just like to reiterate the trigger warnings that I found throughout the book, which is trigger warnings for racism / slang against Indigenous cultures, talk of abortion, toxic masculinity, casual talk of suicide, and fertility issues. So that is all I have for this critical reread of Breaking Dawn. I did way better with this book than I have on previous books, and that's all I have for now. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. As always, if you like what you see here, please go ahead and click subscribe. I post new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, so click subscribe so you can be updated for when I post those. If you're interested in seeing my other critical reread vlogs for the Twilight Saga, I will link a playlist in the description below that has all of them. That's all I have, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye! In the darkness, I don't feel so cold.